Welcome to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
I'd just like to ask that the both of you join me in prayer.
Nah. Joe Giammatteo.
I thought Pillman was going to pass the plate around there for a minute.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history. One episode of Raw is war at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on April 28th, 1997. This Raw was recorded at the Omaha Civic Center in Omaha, Nebraska, and features Vince McMahon, Jim Ross, and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then, let's get into it. Last week on Raw is War, we got a video montage at the start of this episode highlighting all of that storytelling between Steve Austin and Bret Hart from last week. It went on for quite a while, replaying a ton of footage, and my immediate cynical thought was that they must not have anything new and more exciting to give us to start this episode. I did end up changing my mind about that, but I was just a little leery to start off. One good thing that I thought about this is that having Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler's commentary over it was such a good choice, and it was great they had that option. Jim and Jerry have a very media-friendly way of working in sound bites and one-liners. It's something that we will all come to know as wrestling fans, but with any given video footage, you can find any given kind of one-liner from either of them to match what you're seeing, and it works really well for replaying stuff like this. Keeps it from getting quite as stale, in my opinion. After that, we got the real start of the show with Pyro destroying the eardrums of everyone present, and some great footage of the fans of Omaha, Nebraska losing their shit there. This was a very animated crowd. And then, surprise, surprise, Brian fucking Pillman comes out with a microphone to climb in the ring and deliver a promo. Brian says he's deeply religious, and after the carnage of last week's assault on Austin, he's been having nightmares. But now the spirit of truth has overwhelmed him, and he's been compelled to pray for us all. So much so that he wants to ask the crowd to pray with him, which elicits a chorus of boos from the Philistines of Omaha. And then a very strong chant for Austin to follow that up. Pillman wants us to pray for Bret Hart to have a quick recovery, pray for the forgiveness of those that enjoyed that violence, and finally, pray for Stone Cold Steve Austin and the violence out in society. He ends up dropping to his knees for that. And finally, he really cranks into it and wants to pray for the complete annihilation and destruction of Stone Cold Steve Austin. By the way, everybody, we also need to let Bret Hart into our heart and minds. But then Stone Cold Steve Austin comes up on the Titantron, and as soon as he says he ought to come out and beat the hell out of Pillman, the crowd pops. And so did I. When Pillman says to turn the other cheek, pointing his ass at the Titantron, Vince utters a dreadful, "Oh no." Stone Cold does come out to the ring, and he was fucking pissed. But it's a trap. Owen and the Bulldog were waiting in the wings, and Austin escapes, exiting through the crowd, much to the crowd's delight. After Austin leaves, though, Pillman invites Owen and Davey to pray with him, and I was a little turned off, I'm not gonna lie. I was hoping that whole angle wouldn't continue, but being turned off, that was up until it was Owen's turn to pray, and he started with, "I want everyone to please pray for my brother Bret," which brought a very big smile to my face. Up on the Titantron, we got footage of Austin finding a cache of melee weapons in some kind of boiler room area, and ended up picking an axe handle out of the variety there. And just to throw this out there, Ahmed Johnson should take fucking note, because this is how you chase off a group of large men with a length of wood. Austin practically flew over the top turnbuckle trying to get at them. My God, it looked great. And Austin caps that off, saying that they better give their souls to the Lord because their asses are his. This is where commentary finally breaks down to give us the intro, the match card, and after a commercial break, we come back to Pillman in the locker room praying again. I was a little turned off, and that's where this segment ended. Talk about a new format. After last week's soap opera material, we've got more of the same here, and as leery as I was going into this about the religious angle, I have to say that at no point would I have changed the channel. I was locked into this from the start. Joe, what did you think of it?
Well, I guess I want to ask you, what made you leery about the religious angle?
Well, not so much that I thought they were going to be serious about it, because just knowing the character of Pillman and, I didn't think he was legitimately religious. I just thought that they were going to spend way too much time on it and give it way too much. Really, that's about it. Way too much screen time, which in my opinion, they did come a little close to doing.
I just wondered, I thought it was fucking tremendous, all of it. It's 1997. They're not using a lot of vulgarity, but he's being very offensive.
Yes.
And that's why I like it. Brian Pillman with a live mic is just, it's amazing. It's a shame we're only going to get a small sample here, but you got to enjoy it while it lasts, And Steve Austin is already Hulkamania level, in my opinion, here. This crowd is losing their mind. They've got their Austin 316 shirts all over the place. I mean, it's already happened. This prayer thing is just, it was almost getting to that level where it's like, okay, it's a little too long, but for me, I just, like I said, I thought it was tremendous. And I loved when he was in the back praying and he was talking about Brett's knee. He said, I pray for the healing of his beloved knee. I lost it there. The beloved knee was just beautiful. And Austin coming out and cutting his quick promo there was fantastic. It was quick. It got to the point. You better give your soul to the Lord or somebody because your ass is mine. I mean, that just got this crowd even more excited. I loved all of this.
Yeah, Joe, I'm in your camp. You both know I also am a deeply religious man, so I found everything Brian Pillman was doing here absolutely hilarious, and I fucking loved it. When he was on his knees crying about wanting to bring down Stone Cold, just absolutely golden. And then when he got Owen and the Bulldog in the prayer circle, you could almost see Owen and the Bulldog were like, what the fuck? Where is this going? Because you gave Brian Pillman a live mic and the world was better for it. I never at any point thought that this was going too far or getting old, because Brian Pillman found a way to spice it up every minute. He'd add in another line or give a smirk at the right point to let you know, he's in on the joke as well. I loved when Stone Cold came down too, and the way he sniffed out the trap, came back with that axe handle and just cleared the ring and gave a great promo of his own. Just picking up where last week left off, just on fire still.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And I think that it was good to start off this way again. It kind of got a little bit close to milking it a little bit too much, but at the same time, as soon as I was going to type that note, I was like, what else do they really have going on? They might as well get as much out of this as they can, right?
Joe, you love the beloved knee line. I loved when he started calling Bret Hart the savior of the WWF. Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really adding another layer to the Hart Foundation that just nobody saw coming.
Yeah, that's fucking 100% true, too. I didn't see that coming at all. I mean, I knew Pillman was going to wind up in the mix with the Hart Foundation, but I don't remember this at all. I mean, that was good.
Yeah, I mean, you got Brett, who's the clear leader, and you got the other two, the henchmen, and then you have this fucking crazed lunatic,
the court jester.
Yeah.
The wild card. Now that we've had a taste of the good shit, let's do a complete 180 and go to our first match of the night. Flash Funk defeats Rockabilly with the Honky Tonk Man by pinfall in 4 minutes and 42 seconds. Flash Funk, get down and funky. Like, seriously, how could you justify going to this shit after that hot start?
Yeah.
I just...
Who puts these shows together?
Yeah.
Obviously, Vince gives the final say on all of it. It's like, man, who lays these out?
Yeah. I'll try not to dwell too much on the negative because there's plenty of it here. I do like Honky Tonk's black and white leisure suit, so that was all right?
Sure. Okay.
It's a positive. The work was all right to start. This wasn't a clinic by any means, but these two were mostly tight. Then we went to split screen to an ambulance, apparently delivering Bret fucking Hart to the arena. The King was very surprised by that, as was I. And this was advertised at the start as live, but there are a lot of things in this segment specifically that felt pre-recorded, not just the ambulance delivery, but some of the commentary felt like it was like overdubbed maybe. I don't know. That was just a general feeling I had. I did like Rockabilly's tornado DDT on Flash Funk from the top turnbuckle. That's something that you don't see every day here in 1997. The showboating after was disgusting though, and after some fuckery, Flash Funk hits a roll-up and gets the pin. That's not the end, as it's set up for Rockabilly to hit Flash Funk over the head with another one of those heirloom guitars. That draws some officials into the ring, and it ends the segment. Things move on very quickly after that, so we'll pause it here. As serviceable as the action mostly was in this match, I can't get past the cartoon bullshit, especially what's going on around it in the overall show. It's just sticking out like a sore thumb here. Joe, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. It's pretty bad. And to me, the smashing a guitar, that whole angle there, that's a big spot to use, and they're making it absolutely meaningless here. They're just this guy's just smashing a heirloom over Flash Funk's head, and it's gonna go nowhere. So that's something that you should use in a big spot for turning on somebody, or some sort of big storyline that you're gonna get started,
or to win a pay-per-view match or something.
Yeah, I don't see it happening here with Flash Funk. So yeah, just a complete waste.
Yeah, a complete agreement with the both of you here. The action in the ring was fairly serviceable. It's just that nobody cares about anyone involved in this storyline. And, the moment Rockabilly started his dancing, I cared even less, regardless of how many decent looking moves he could pull off in the ring. And then it ended pretty quickly with Flash Funk getting the victory, which was a bit of a surprise because leading into this, I was, thinking to myself, if Flash Funk did the honors here, he might be picking up a Jobber of the Week title.
Whoa.
But he saved himself here, so way to go.
Oh, that would have been
in the danger zone.
The danger zone. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to add other than Joe, do you really think that this isn't guitar smashing level of a feud? I mean, this is probably this is one for the books, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's worked up to that at least.
Yep, I can't wait to see what they do next.
Yeah, the blow off. Well, let's move it along here because the show did quite quickly, as I said before. Rockabilly was barely out of the ring before they had Bret Hart up on the Titantron and up on our screens. He was there getting wheeled into the arena by Owen and the Bulldog, trailed by Gorilla Monsoon and security. After a commercial break, we came back to Vince McMahon saying that Bret Hart had to have surgery last week, and after that, he's here to share his thoughts with us. We got some grainy live surgery footage up on our screens. No idea what that was. It looked really weird and almost hairy. Then Bret gets wheeled out. Now his leg was dramatically raised in an elevated position there in the wheelchair. It wasn't before. Owen and the Bulldog are there. They step back to stand guard in the entryway and give Bret the spotlight. Bret gives us some great lines to kick this off, praising Pillman, saying that no matter how much you pray, one slimy, rotten hyena will break through and take down a lion, the king of the jungle. And no, Bret wasn't talking about Awatamela, he was talking about himself. Austin didn't kill Bret, he just wounded him. Bret calls Austin the scum of America. Bret realized that hyenas don't hunt by themselves, they hunt in packs. And while Austin is a hyena, so is every other American wrestling fan. And this is some original shit that I have been looking for with the anti-American angle. I complained last week about Bret hitting bullet points, and this delivery solves that gripe for me because I fucking love it. He's still saying the same things, he's just changing up the way that he's saying it. Bret goes on and really fucking leans into it. Then Bret calls himself the best there is, best there was, best there ever will be, drawing boos, to which he replies, if you don't like that, how do you think the rest of the world feels about America? And Jesus Christ, I popped hard. I popped. So fucking clever. When a USA chant starts after that, Bret casually tosses out that his mother is American, and I fucking popped again.
Yeah, the way he said it too. He's like, yeah, USA. My mother's American.
Yeah. Bret finishes up saying that tonight Austin is going to need that ambulance. And I will pause it here because there's more to talk about after this, but before our next match. In case you couldn't catch it from my breakdown, I loved every fucking second of this. Not just what Bret was saying, but the visual here. We had Bret centered at the top of the ramp, Owen and Bulldog over his shoulders like sentries behind him. He was surrounded by subdued purple lighting. This was an amazing scene in every way. The promo delivery was amazing. Fuck, I wanted to go out and buy a black leather jacket after this. Ryan, what did you have on this, please?
Yeah, I completely agree. Everyone involved did a great job here. And, as much as last week was the Stone Cold Steve Austin show, this week we get the response from the Hart Foundation, and this is the Hart Foundation week, and they knock it out of the park. I was a little bit shaking or scratching my head when Vince showed us this grainy footage of proof that he got his niece. Like this footage couldn't be anyone else. Like there was anything to actually tie this to Bret Hart.
You just stole it from the Learning Channel.
Yeah, exactly. But none of that mattered because once Bret got on the mic, he was fantastic. He really laid into that hyena term he likes to use. Instead of just using it, he also goes on to explain how hyenas hunt and what they do. And like you said, Bartlett, he's treading on familiar waters here, but he's changing it up enough to keep it fresh and still getting a great rise out of the crowd. Here we are just 2 months away from the entire crowd cheering for him, and now just chorus of boos. Fantastic job.
Yeah, I'm not sure what else to add that you guys haven't already pointed out. I mean, this is great heel work from Bret Hart tonight, Brian Pillman. This is stuff that we've needed desperately for the last, three years. Yeah. Just a real true heel that people can really hate.
One that they're not booing because they're bored.
Right.
Yeah, and just really unique ways of using that heel heat. Bret did have knee surgery, and they're using that. They have him in a wheelchair. He's got this huge cast on, and he doesn't even do anybody the favor of wheeling down to the ring. He just stops at the top of the ramp to cut his promo, which is great. I loved it when he said that ambulance that brought me here tonight better stay real close for Austin. And what's interesting is he's talking about all of this violence and gore that the American fans love, and it's almost like he's predicting the future for wrestling. He's predicting the next 10 years of wrestling, which is going to be all basically based on violence, which is crazy. A lot of this was just, all of this was amazing. Even when he does repeat himself a little bit about the American wrestling fans, it doesn't really bother me because it comes off as real no matter what.
Yeah.
Just the way that he says it comes off as real. It's not some shitty, goofy Bob Backlund bullshit,
Yes. This
is real good heel stuff.
I don't have anything else to add, man. It was fantastic, Joe. You're absolutely right. Desperately needed. After Bret leaves, Austin was seen searching the arena for the first aid room. And then we got footage from Superstars. Apparently the Legion of Doom fucking broke Henry Godwin's neck.
God damn.
I had no idea what to think about that. We got footage of it happening, quote unquote happening. I'm not sure how real that is or if it's just a part of an angle, but they really didn't give us anything extra on that. Then for the first time in a while, we got one of those funny 90s WWF commercials. Grandpa is losing his mind, and as part of his senility, he's imitating superstars. Vader, Mankind, he did a couple there. It was pretty entertaining. Joe, what did you have on the news that Henry Godwin's neck got broken, and as well as what I thought was a very entertaining commercial?
Well, the news is real. the Observer reported that he did actually fracture his neck there, so he's going to be out for a while. And yeah, that reality check commercial is what they were calling it, right?
Yeah.
It was pretty strange. I liked it, but I don't want to spoil anything. I did like the next one that we're going to see a lot better than this one.
Yeah, unfortunate to hear about the Henry Godwinn news. He's been one of Wrasslin Raw favorites for a while as far as his ring work goes. And so, yeah, it's a shame to hear that he broke his neck. But yeah, this commercial, I loved it. And Joe, same as you, not quite as much as I love the next one.
Well, after that, we came back to What a Rush and our next match. The Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, defeat Furnace and LaFawn by pinfall in 3 minutes and 47 seconds. And Furnace and LaFawn are our jobbers of the week. Take it, Ryan.
Thank you, Bartlett. Yes, Doug Furnace and Philip LaFawn are our jobbers of the week. Doug Furnace was born Dwight Douglas Furnace on December 11th, 1959 in Commerce, Oklahoma, and was trained by Rick Connors as well as Davey and Johnny Rich, and made his debut in 1986. Philip LaFawn was born Philip LaFawn on September 16th, 1961 in Ontario, Canada, and was trained by the Heart Dungeon. After being noticed by Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid at a local gym, Philip made his in-ring debut in 1983. After gaining in-ring experience as individual wrestlers in the indies, Doug and Philip formed a tag team known as the Can-Am Express and made their debut on June 5th, 1989 for All Japan Pro Wrestling. They quickly gained recognition, holding the All Asia Tag Team Championships 3 times between 1989 and 92. The team then spent a year at the Mexican-based promotion Universal Wrestling Association, where they held the UWA World Tag Belts twice before returning to All Japan Pro Wrestling in the summer of 93. Back in All Japan Pro Wrestling, Doug and Philip quickly regained the All Asia Tag Team belts, and LaFawn even won the AJPW's World Junior Heavyweight Championship, becoming a double champion. The Can-Am Express lost and regained the tag team belts once more before leaving All Japan Pro Wrestling for good in 96. For less than a year, the tag team wrestled for ECW, feuding with Sabu and Rob Van Dam in a series of memorable matches between the two teams, regarded by many as some of the best tag team matches in ECW history. In late 96, Furnace and LaFawn signed with the WWF, debuting at the 96 Survivor Series with partners Henry and Phineas Godwinn against the tag team champs Owen Hart and the Bulldog and the New Rockers. Furnace and LaFawn were the last survivors, pinning the tag team champs. This victory earned them a shot at the tag team titles. They would win their match against Owen and the Bulldog, but by disqualification, meaning the belts would stay with Owen and Davey Boy. Despite being very good wrestlers, by this time it was clear that Doug and Philip were not really catching on with the fans here in the WWF, and after a very short push began to fall down the card, leading us to where we are today, getting completely squashed by the Legion of Doom, and then getting in the ring and blaming their loss on the fans not cheering for them. Then the fans responded with complete indifference. Shortly after this, Furnace and LaFawn would get in a car accident, which would keep them out of action for several months, returning to the ring in the fall of 97. But outside of a Team Canada Survivor Series match, they wrestled almost exclusively at house shows or Shotgun Saturday Night, with their last WWF match coming on December 9th, 1997, defeating the team of Flash Funk and Scott Taylor. The team returned to ECW and immediately won the tag belts from the FBI, but lost them the very next night at the ECW pay-per-view Better Than Ever to the tag team of Chris Candido and Lance Storm. Then, in early 98, after nearly a decade together, Furnace and LaFawn would go their separate ways. After LaFawn left ECW and returned to All Japan Pro Wrestling, Furnace continued to wrestle as a singles wrestler at ECW throughout most of 98 before retiring. Doug Furnas died in February of 2012. It's not known exactly when because his body was not found until March. It appeared he died of a heart attack at the age of 52. Philip LaFawn continued with All Japan Pro Wrestling until 2001, and then with various Canadian indie promotions until his retirement in 2014. Together, the tag team of Doug Furnas and Philip LaFawn have a record of 533 wins, 302 losses, and 7 draws. So they definitely were not jobbers for most of their career, but right now they are certainly being treated as such in the WWF.
My God, thank you for that, Ryan. Always ashamed to hear about a death as a final result of some of these segments, but
it is.
Something even more surprising that you mentioned was that LaFawn kept on going. I'll touch more on it here.
Till when again?
2014 was his final.
Yeah, that's
match.
Nuts.
The state of his fucking knees. I mean, the level of wraps around his knees by that point must have been like twice the girth of his body. Let's get into the match here. I did enjoy Furnas and LaFawn's entrance look. That was pretty cool. I like just the overall look that they have. But then we got a split screen with Furnas and LaFawn prior to the match being asked why they think they haven't been accepted. And honestly, I thought they did pretty well with it, especially with LaFawn's English as a second language thing going on there. His pretty light French-Canadian accent. In the ring, I continued to be pleasantly surprised with the action. Things were sold really well. Things were worked really well. Everything made sense. The rules weren't being violated. This was a pretty straightforward by-the-books tag team match, and I was enjoying it. At about the time the crowd started chanting LOD and Phil LaFawn put an armbar on Hawk, I was on the edge of my seat waiting for the other shoe to drop. But that didn't come as they worked straight through to the pinfall, and I thought it all looked great. This was a great tag team match. But then LOD beat a hasty exit, and JR got in the ring to interview Furnas and LaFawn. JR asked why they think they lost, and they more or less just repeated their points from earlier. I kind of assumed that was because the live crowd might not have seen that interview that they aired during the beginning of the match. Not positive. But then, as they were exiting the ring, I winced pretty hard seeing Phil LaFawn need to brace himself against Doug Furnas when jumping out of the ring so as not to put too much pressure on those knees. Like I said, they were already just really wrapped up in this match, and the thought of him going with knees like that until 2014 is just mind-blowing. So, Ryan, you had told me these two would be the jobbers of the week before I saw this match, and that's why I was expecting a lot worse out of this. And in the end, I actually thought that most of this was pretty good, including their rationale for why they haven't been doing well. They said, for the record, that it's because they're always playing to somebody else's home crowd, meaning that, they're international stars and it's the American fans that are not getting on the bandwagon. It's not their fault. So with all that being said, I wanted to hear your thoughts first on this, please.
Sure. I didn't give them Jobber of the Week because I thought it was a bad match. I didn't. I thought they did a really good job in there putting Legion of Doom over. Mostly the reason they got it for was, one, we haven't really seen them forever, so their push is clearly done with. And when they show up here, it's pretty much a squash match. I mean, they do a good job. Nothing in here looks bad. And I completely agree. I didn't hate the match. I just think, where their current position in the company and the way that they were treated in this match, and then their justification at the end of basically, well, we didn't win because you guys don't cheer for us. That just put them right into jobber territory in my book. Sorry.
There was some weird irony here because when they were coming out, making their entrance, the crowd, you could hear a pin drop in that crowd. They did not give a shit about these guys. And then later I see that they're cutting a promo basically complaining that the crowd doesn't like them. This was strange. It all makes sense, but you are not over at all, and you're complaining that you're not over, and that's how you want to get over, I guess, which is going to be hard for someone like these guys to do, I think. But I didn't think any of this was... obviously, it's some sort of a, I guess, reset button for these guys, that they're going to try something new. I didn't hate it. I'm willing to give it another chance to see what happens, but I didn't necessarily really like it either.
Well, it kind of sounds like we're not going to have to think about it too hard for the next couple months after some of that news that we got in the Jobber of the Week segment. Ryan, you said a car accident.
Yeah, it sounded like they must have been driving to a show because they were both involved in the accident.
Well, I mean, we'll see what we can get out of it while we can. So hopefully that stays at least up to the quality of this match, even if the storytelling might not. Let's move it along and look at last week on Shotgun Saturday Night. Apparently, on Shotgun Saturday Night, Sonny is hosting some kind of segment, maybe like a Piper's Pit type thing. I'm not sure. We didn't get a whole lot of context, but it's on a sexy bed on top of the entry ramp, which has to be some kind of symbolism, I'm sure. But Mosh and Thrasher showed up wearing pajamas. They brought a boombox with them. They were carrying arena concessions like popcorn and hot dogs and climbed into bed with her. That somehow transitioned to Ahmed Johnson, who was very overdressed, in the locker room. He was looking downright pensive. He was upset that he sent the Sultan to the hospital. But then out of nowhere, he loses his shit and cuts a promo that was borderline unintelligible, trashing the room around him. I did hear somewhere in that mix Ahmed claim himself to be a gang member. And that's the big takeaway for me there. But then we moved to the Hart Foundation backstage in a huddle, and then Brian Pillman holding Owen's slammies and praying with them, which I loved.
Best scene of the night.
Yeah, I did love it. It was at that point that I stopped being leery about the religious angle. That cut to commercial and ended the segments. Joe, this mid-match segment was a mishmash of Mosh and Ahmed and Sonny and Thrasher with a nice touch of Pillman thrown in. What did you think of it?
Yeah, Sonny Undercover is what they were calling that, and I think that's probably, I guess, a good use of Sonny. I'm not real sure what else
Putting her in a
do.
bed.
Putting her in a bed in front of
Put her in a
everybody.
bed in a Piper's Pit type setting, I guess. I don't know. What else are you going to do with her, really?
Well,
Ask Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. Ahmed Johnson and Nation of Domination, I don't know. I'm like already sick of it, I think, but I don't know. I like Farouk, so I'm not gonna completely hate on it. I'm a gang member, baby. Remember that is what he says. I'm like, what is he even talking about? I don't understand. He's raging about Nation of Domination, but remember, they haven't even fucking touched him at all yet.
Haven't been able to get near him with that 2x4.
yeah.
This promo was not good. But what was good was, Brian Pillman praying with the slammies.
Yeah, the Shotgun Saturday Night, not much to really add there. You know, this probably was a fairly entertaining segment for the crowd there, having the Headbangers come out and join Sonny, which does bring up, are the Headbangers starting to get over a little bit with the fans that they would bring them out for a segment like this? You know, I don't know, because we really haven't seen them in a little while, but Ahmed Johnson, I'm sorry. I didn't really make out anything much from this promo outside of the fact he is angry at the Sultan for injuring him. I mean, that seems to be the gist, is he's mad that he injured someone. He's mad at them that they got injured from him. But thankfully, that goes to a much more understandable segment with Brian Pillman clutching these two slammies in his hand as he prays very loudly and crying. And I just love it. Brian Pillman continuing to just go over in my mind with everything he's doing. Love it.
All right. Well, gentlemen, let's find out if the power of prayer proves the realness of God with our next match. Owen Hart, with Bret Hart and the British Bulldog, defeats Rocky Maivia by pinfall in 8 minutes and 26 seconds to win the WWF Intercontinental Championship. By God. Owen grabs a microphone before the match starts and dedicated the match to his brother Bret. I loved it. First thing I noticed about Rocky was the 5 o'clock shadow he had on. That was just kind of strange to see. But things got going very quickly, and the work was looking good. We got a screenshot up of a recent issue of Raw magazine with Bret Hart and Bart Simpson on it, the headline being The Bart Foundation, and I fucking loved it. And after that, I just sat back and enjoyed this match. This was nothing to write home about, but there was nothing wrong with it either. There were some pretty good spots. I liked Rocky hooking Owen into a roll-up while Owen was working Rocky's knee. I did not like Rocky breaking the sharpshooter when Owen very obviously had to lower his hair down and remind Rocky to grab it to break the hold. Rocky superplexing Owen out of the top rope. That looked good. And Owen's pin of Rocky came out of nowhere, and while I'm not upset about draping more gold over the Hart Foundation, this almost felt like a throwaway title change. I don't know really what to attribute that to other than we just haven't really given a shit about the IC title or Rocky as a champion other than just, the scraps they've been throwing him. But I did love the visual after the match of Brett in the wheelchair carrying all of that gold, the Bulldog tipping the chair up and giving Brett a victory lap to end things. Joe, I liked the end results, but while this match was serviceable, it also didn't feel like a title defense. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it does seem a little bit rushed, but I look at it as, and I guess it's a little bit of cheating because we kind of know what happens, but I look at it as more of a transition to get Stone Cold Steve Austin into the mix with the Intercontinental title. And you don't want Stone Cold Steve Austin going up against Rocky Maivia if you're going to do that. So
right.
It makes sense that they would do this. This match to me wasn't anything great. I think that Rocky Maivia's matches are still just not very exciting. I think that they still sort of look like wrestling school matches a little bit, and rightfully so. He's only been wrestling for not very long, less than a year. So it's not surprising. And one thing about Rocky too is that he looks fucking huge compared to Owen Hart.
Yeah.
That's something that people don't really talk about too much with The Rock, just because of all the charisma that he had. Nobody ever really talks about how big he is, and he's a big dude.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
The terrible mustache too, by the way. That 5 o'clock shadow with the mustache. Maybe he did that on purpose to piss off Vince because he was taking the title off of him. I don't know. Again, it just really blows my mind how much of this Hart Foundation stuff reminds me of what they're doing now in 2023 with the Bloodline storyline. It's so similar. They're winning matches for Brett, their leader. They got all the gold now. It's just really mind blowing to me that they're still doing this kind of shit 25 years later. That just shows you how great this stuff was.
Yeah, the match, it didn't feel maybe title belt worthy, and I don't think that it's necessarily either of the two wrestlers' fault in that it's just the IC belt hasn't really meant much for months, and they haven't built it up, and hopefully giving it to Owen Hart, that'll change it a little bit. You're giving it to a little higher profile guy who typically has a match a week, so if we could see some more IC belt matches and on the caliber of matches that Owen Hart are typically in, I think that this was probably worth it. The match itself, it was just solid. Owen does a good job of working with Rocky here, but it does, Joe, like you said, it kind of seems like Owen was still teaching The Rock some moves in there, right up to him having to explain to him to break the sharpshooter. There was a little bit of hit and miss with this match, but I thought in the end it was a positive. They put on a decent show, and the fact that Owen Hart comes out with a belt, I love, because a point that JR and the King make during this is they agree that Owen Hart is severely underrated. That's a true statement. So I like the fact that they're giving him a little bit of gold here, and now the Hart Foundation, they have everything but the heavyweight title. And, that's a pretty good way to build up hatred for a heel faction. So I like where they're going with it, but the match wasn't the best.
Yeah. Seems like the three of us are in agreement on that. This is ultimately for the better, and I'm glad that it happened. Let's move now to backstage. Stone Cold Steve Austin was there wheeling himself around in a wheelchair and carrying that axe handle across the handles there as we moved into the second hour of Raw is War. And once again, we kicked off the hour with the sound of glass breaking. Austin came in through the crowd, and there was not a good camera angle of him, and that was probably because he was pushing that wheelchair with him, or maybe riding it down, and we couldn't see. He then unceremoniously tossed that wheelchair over the crowd barrier and brought it up into the ring. Austin sat in the wheelchair with the microphone after swiping the mic from Vince McMahon. Austin wants to see who's interested in a wheelchair match. And I fucking popped. That was just part of the story, though, because Austin is also a liar, says he. And all he wants is to kick the shit out of Bret Hart any way he can get to him. Austin wants the title. He's going to kick The Undertaker's ass for it. And that finishes up with Bret Hart on the Titantron telling Austin that the ambulance is for him. And then Vince McMahon breaks in to say, in a very dry voice, "We are about to experience Vader time," with a shot of Vader mastodoning it up in front of a chain link fence and some black burn barrels backstage. Man, I really wish things could have stayed good. We got a replay of what happened with Vader in Kuwait, kicking off the Kuwaiti crisis of 1997, an international incident, as Vince puts it. And then we got a view of commentary letting us know that there has been no word from Mike Tyson after Ken Shamrock highlighted Tyson's rape charges before challenging him to a fight last week.
Shocker.
That was followed by a video package highlighting Ken Shamrock talking himself up, and this had a Todd Pettingzoo voiceover, and it put over Ken Shamrock hard in a very 80s ESPN kind of way. We did get footage of Shamrock and his family to cap it off. He has a very nice-looking family. It was a great visual. I thought it was a great touch. It made Ken look good, and that good feeling ended with Cousin Eddie on the fucking microphone, so I'll pause it there. Ryan, once again, we started the hour with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and while the following material might not have been as good as Steve Austin's promo, we also got info on Vader. We got a decent video package on Ken Shamrock. What'd you think of this segment?
Of course, the Stone Cold segment is fantastic. He comes down and says, "Does anyone want to see a wheelchair match?" And then he cuts a great promo. He says at the end of it that he's going to kick The Undertaker's ass. And if there is anything to show you how over Stone Cold is, he just said he's going to kick The Undertaker's ass, and the crowd doesn't boo him for it. And he gets some cheers. That's pretty amazing to me because there's really no one over like The Undertaker is in the WWF, and well, maybe until now. It's really quite something in such a short amount of time. Vader in the international incident, I don't care. Okay. I mean, there's nothing that's going to really make me more excited for Vader at this point. He has kind of sucked out all my enjoyment of anything he does, so I'm not sure I care. The Ken Shamrock vignette, it was decent, nothing special. I thought it was kind of funny. The reuse of the word challenge here, it sounds like he's going to be challenged and he's going to rise to that challenge and challenge that challenge to overcome it. So, okay, Ken, I hope you overcome that challenge, but excited to see Ken in the ring, but maybe not in vignettes.
Yeah, this was the Stone Cold for the third time tonight, I think we saw him, so that just kind of shows you where we are and how over he is. And yeah, Ryan, you mentioned him talking about kicking The Undertaker's ass, and I mean, since we started this podcast, we started watching the 1993 stuff until 97. This is probably the best build-up for a challenger that we've seen in those 4 years, I think. I mean, I can't think of any other time that there's been this good of a build-up for a title challenger. So this is really good stuff. And not only does he have a match with The Undertaker, he's got this huge beef now with Brian Pillman and Bret Hart, which is like the highlight of the show, basically. That's just crazy to see this build-up right now. Vader, the one thing about that bothers me. So Vader's pretty much at the point in his career where he's going to have to just put other guys over, like Ken Shamrock. So hopefully that's what happens. But Vader in Kuwait, they're doing this bully angle, but to me, Vader looks like a babyface here. He's wanting to kick this guy's ass for calling wrestling fake. To me, that's a
protecting
babyface.
The company.
Yeah, that just shows what a weak ass angle it is that they're using. Ken Shamrock, I mean, he talks about having a rough life.
Challenge. He was given challenges.
Yeah, that may be true, but I mean, I don't know, his life seems pretty good right now. He's got a nice looking family. He's on the gas. He's rich.
That gas tank is topped off.
He's on TV. My God, what more do you want?
That's a great way to put it. I mean, what more could you want? Especially when you spend all your days working hard for the dough. That clock on the wall, it's spinning too slow. Sorry, I had to. Let's get through this next segment. It's our next match. Vince Vader defeats Double J Jesse James by pinfall in 1 minute and 34 seconds. I never thought I'd be happy to hear it's Vader time, but in this case, it was cutting off that shitty pop country bullshit that Cousin Eddie comes out with, so that was good. I loved JR calling Vader an embarrassment. That was great. Talk about a clash in styles. I know there are many ways to look at this, but I saw it as Jesse James making Vader look like a brick shithouse. Like, the hits that Jesse was landing on Vader just didn't even faze him. And I know that's Vader no-selling like he always does. I don't know. In this case, it was better. It was better to see. Vader hits a couple of Vader bombs, causing JR to get even more worked up about Vader being an idiot. And we even got a split screen with JR's face for the pinfall, shaking his head in disgust. Once Jesse James clears out of the ring, JR gets up in the ring to interview Vader, and JR asks if Vader has any shame or remorse after all the trouble that he caused in the Kuwaiti crisis of 1997. Vader apologizes for nothing and to no one. JR asks Vader if Vader maybe overreacted when asked a stupid question, to which Vader gets predictably insulted again and predictably overreacts to it all over again. Just as Vader is putting his hands on JR, Ken Shamrock, out of nowhere, grabs Vader and body slams him. Chasing Vader off, Vader runs up the entryway, and Ken gets himself very pumped up in the ring while Vader tucks tail. Gentlemen, my two biggest takeaways from this were, first, number one, I'm concerned about the way that JR was being used here. I don't like JR being used in angles. We saw how that turned out the last time with Razor and Fake Diesel. And two, I love the fact that there was zero mention of Mankind or Paul Bearer in any of this Vader shit. No mention. None at all. Didn't pass anybody's lips. Ryan, what did you think of this?
Jesse James comes out singing this tired-ass song, and it's become absolute torture at this point. But like you said, thankfully cut off by Vader coming down here. And, at the start, it looked like Jesse James was really laying into those hits into Vader's face. Like, you could hear the impact, and Vader must not have really liked that, because he threw Jesse against the ropes and then chest bounces him. It was violent as fuck. Like, it looked like a car crash, the way Jesse James bounced off of Vader's barrel chest and flung to the ground and then
crumbled.
He crumbled, and then Vader completely squashed him for the rest. Just fucking slam after slam, humiliating him with a pickup pin, just to Vader bomb him again and then go for the victory. If it wasn't for Doug and Phillip tonight, the real Double J would have been getting the Jobber of the Week. So he was absolutely saved. The segment after with him talking to JR, it just kind of continues with I just don't care. I don't care what he did in Kuwait. I don't care what you're trying to do with him. I liked Ken coming out at the end and sending Vader off, but this monster that we try to make Vader, here he is again, tucking tail and running like he's done pretty much for the last 6 months that he's been here. So I guess why change it up?
Yeah, there were things I liked about this and things that I hated. I think that Cousin Eddie getting squashed was absolutely perfect. I loved that. And if we want to take Vader seriously against a guy like Ken Shamrock, then yeah, he needs to put away Cousin Eddie quick. And he did. And that was nice. I absolutely hated that they are talking about wrestling being fake in the ring, especially Jim Ross. So I did not like that. They weren't flat out saying wrestling is fake, but they were talking about it because of this fucking Kuwait guy. So that pissed me off. Yeah, I mean, Vader tucking tail and running away, whatever. At this point, if you're going to put guys over, then whatever, that's fine. But, again, it's hard to even care about Vader at this point, unfortunately, but I am kind of looking forward to him against Ken Shamrock because I think that's going to be pretty brutal.
Yeah, agreed. That's kind of where I'm at with it. This is all just a way of getting Ken Shamrock over. And if that's the case, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'll endure it.
Yeah. And Cousin Eddie gets squashed, so that's great.
Right.
Well, we got a view backstage after that of Goldust at a dressing room table applying makeup. Terry, I mean Marlena, was by his side. Goldust didn't want Marlena to come out with him because of how dangerous it's going to be. And that will take us into our next match. Goldust with Marlena defeats Hunter Hearst Helmsley with Chyna by countout in 7 minutes and 49 seconds. Goldust jump-started this before the Fink could even finish announcing it. Goldust was appropriately bizarre, gyrating his gold-encased groin in Hunter's face before kissing him in the corner, oh so gently. On 1-900 Shameless, Psycho Sid and Sunny are making headlines, calling to find out how. I wonder how. That's being genuinely curious from me. Psycho Sid, I want to know what's going on with him. Chyna was looking great here as usual. She got some action in, beating on Goldust when he got kicked out of the ring. That drew out Marlena in a golden pantsuit, which was surprising. Still not sure what to think of that. We got a view of Chyna looking very annoyed about things, and Vince called that view Shades of Ellen, referencing Ellen DeGeneres, and then tied it to Goldust coming out of the closet next week? What the fuck is that about? I guess we'll find out next week, but yeah, Ellen DeGeneres coming out of the closet. During a distraction outside, Marlena threw some baby powder in Chyna's eyes, blinding Chyna, and when Hunter runs over to Chyna, Chyna blindly lifts Hunter into a standing choke, holding him up, getting great height. What a fucking visual that was. And that is what draws the count-out victory for Goldust. Things keep moving quickly out of that segment, so that's where I'm pausing it. This feud has been tired for a while now. I'm with you on that, Joe. But I have to say, it does still give us ways to appreciate Chyna. I thought the use of Marlena was great in this too. And honestly, I'm intrigued by what sounds like, based on what commentary was saying in this, there may be a refresh of the Goldust gimmick coming up. Joe, what did you think of it?
I don't know. I'm so confused at how they could butcher a gimmick like Goldust already. I think that it was a gimmick that was over, it was working, and then all of a sudden now I guess it's because they turned him babyface. I guess that's probably the main reason why it's not working for me, brother. But even the Chyna and Marlena stuff, to me, like I have absolutely loved everything they've done up to this point. But I don't know, this got a little bit on the verge of cartoony tonight on this show. I thought it was a little silly with the powder in the face. But I don't know. This is, and then Vince telling us Goldust is coming out of the closet. I'm just like, man, they've totally just butchered this whole gimmick terribly, and it's kind of pissing me off, actually.
I don't completely disagree. I'm, completely tired of these two guys wrestling. And when I saw that it was another Hunter Hearst Helmsley Goldust match, I was kind of rolling my eyes. But I thought by the end of this match, they made it more exciting than it should have been. I thought Goldust, he came in hot, railing on Hunter. It looked good. And then the stuff with Marlena and Chyna, the baby powder in the eyes. Yeah, that's a played out trope in wrestling. But when Chyna picked up Hunter by his throat to cause the disqualification, I thought that was a pretty clever and unique way to end this match, and continues to put Chyna over as an absolute beast. Even her handler there can't keep her under control, and in doing so cost him the match. So I agree. I'm ready for this feud to be done with and to move on, but I gotta give kudos to both Hunter and Goldust for doing what they could to help make this match feel as fresh as it could.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. This feud isn't that great, but with that being said, this is probably one of the better matches of that feud. It's a low bar, admittedly. And the baby powder thing, to me, that's kind of like the Owen and Rocky match. I'm willing to forgive the baby powder because it got us that great visual of Chyna holding Hunter up. That was fucking tight. All right, well, Hunter and Chyna, they hadn't even hit the ramp yet before the bell was tolling overhead and the crowd was popping. The Undertaker appeared up on the Titantron with Vince communicating up to him, and this was a great visual. This was probably even better for the live crowd than it was for us on our screens. As the lights in the arena were completely out, the Titantron was almost black and white. Fans had lighters lit in the crowd like a metal concert. It was just a great scene altogether. Next up, the Undertaker is going to be taking on the British Bulldog. Right after that, we got another view of Pillman praying in the locker room. And unfortunately, it got cut off, but Pillman was saying great things about The Undertaker, feeling every nail that got hammered into his pine box. That was good shit, pal. We cut to another commercial then, this one in the same vein as that earlier one, except this was a little kid imitating Stone Cold. He had a little bald cap on and everything, and there was a teeny little boombox behind him playing the glass-shattering music. This was pretty entertaining, especially the part towards the end where the father looks at the camera and deadpan says that his son keeps muttering something about whoop-ass. And with a final view of Stone Cold stalking the arena, we ended this. Joe, this mid-match segment was short, but we got some great material from it. What did you think?
Yeah, pretty short. Like you said, good visual for the live crowd with that Undertaker promo on the Titantron. That was pretty cool. Brian Pillman praying again, this time for the Bulldog to maim, cripple, and torture his opponent. I thought that was funny. That reality check commercial, man, that kid does a great Stone Cold Steve Austin impression for a young child. That was pretty good.
Completely agree. Undertaker, he cuts a very good Undertaker-style response promo to Stone Cold. Pillman continuing with his praying gimmick here. Looks great. And then this fantastic commercial. That little boy, Joe, like you said, man, he nailed it. He even had the little head shake down. And
yeah.
That little kid did a great job. Kudos to him.
All right. Well, that was teeing us up for our final match of the night. The Undertaker defeats the British Bulldog with the Hart Foundation by disqualification in 4 minutes and 8 seconds. This time it was the Bulldog's turn to grab a mic and cut a mini promo praising Bret, and he claimed he will win the title for Bret. Vince McMahon is very quick to point out that this is not a title match. I loved how after the bell tolled, The Undertaker had to walk past Bret and Owen on the entryway. What an awkward spot that was. Once the match got started, the action was fairly solid. Nothing to complain about there. It didn't last long, though, because we cut to commercial about 30 seconds into it, putting over the next In Your House. The title of that's going to be A Cold Day in Hell, where Stone Cold will meet The Undertaker for the title. Vince reminded us a few more times after that this was not for the title, just in case there was any confusion about that. And that was pretty much it. Owen quickly interfered to save the Bulldog, which drew the DQ, and then turned into a 2-on-1 with The Undertaker in the corner. That, of course, left the Hitman alone up on the entryway, but then Austin comes out of nowhere, and this confused me. Rather than going after Bret at the top of the ramp, Austin went into the ring to save the Undertaker, or maybe just attack the Bulldog and Owen, I'm not sure. Austin grabs the belt after chasing them off to pose with it, drawing some crowd noise, getting that crowd worked up some more, but is quickly confronted by the Undertaker. Austin tossed the belt at the Undertaker's feet and then hit a stunner out of nowhere. By God. Popped my ass off for that. Went around the ring jawing at the crowd, and when he bent over to give the middle finger to the Undertaker grabbed Austin by the throat, sat up, and stood into a fucking amazing choke slam. Austin gave Taker some great height, sold the shit out of it. What a fucking scene. The crowd loved every minute of it, and so did I. After rolling out of the ring, Austin finally sees Bret Hart at the top of the ramp and starts stalking towards him. But before Austin can reach Bret, Jim the Anvil Neidhart out of nowhere to save Bret, setting Bret up to break a crutch over Austin's body. The Anvil then helped Bret limp away. That crutch shot had also knocked Austin off the ramp to the concrete below, and after that we see Austin being loaded onto a stretcher. The final scene of this episode that we get is that of Brian Pillman gleefully and crazily laughing in a close-up as we fade to black. By God, guys, what a fucking way to end things. The match between The Undertaker and Bulldog was almost non-existent, but I was popping my ass off throughout the rest of this. Ryan, please, what did you think of this match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
Like you said, the match itself is pretty non-existent, but what we did get out of the beginning looked pretty strong. Unfortunately, we immediately go to a commercial break and basically miss the entire match. By the time we come back, all we get is a quick slam out of the Bulldog, and then the Undertaker kicks out and lands a choke slam, and then Owen comes down and we get the disqualification. None of that really mattered, though. It all was about Stone Cold coming out, setting up this pay-per-view match, title match between him and The Undertaker, and they do a great job. Stone Cold hits the stunner after he saves The Undertaker, and he gets a pretty big pop out of the crowd. Again, like I was saying earlier, someone, landing their finisher on The Undertaker doesn't usually get a pop, but to show you he's not quite at The Undertaker level, when The Undertaker wakes up and lands the choke slam, the arena erupted. So he's not quite at Undertaker level, but the fact that he wasn't getting booed for attacking The Undertaker really says something here. And then, surprise, surprise, Jim the Anvil Neidhart. When Austin goes to attack the Hitman, out comes the Anvil, giving Bret the leg up and allowing Bret to bust the crutches over the ribs of Steve Austin, sending him off of the ramp and away in an ambulance as promised. 2 weeks in a row, they are just ending with absolute fire.
Yeah.
I am so happy that we're finally here. We're at the point where this is the type of shit ending Raw. I have nothing bad to say about what happened here. I loved it.
Yeah, I agree. Everything was perfectly executed here. I mean, we are in full-blown soap opera territory now, and unfortunately, the wrestling has declined a little bit, but the storytelling here is just amazing, and everybody just really executed perfectly. There was a little bit, I kind of thought the same thing when I saw Austin come out, and he's basically helping his next opponent, which was a little confusing, but I mean, even with that, we still got the attack on The Undertaker from Austin. One of the things we said about when Mankind first came in is that it's really great to see a real threat to The Undertaker now, finally, and Austin's kind of given us that same thing now with what he's doing lately. He's an actual threat to win the title for real. I would believe that Stone Cold Steve Austin could beat The Undertaker for the title.
Yeah.
So it's working. The storytelling is working. Speaking of storytelling, Brian Pillman giving the crazy eyes look at the end, that is just capping off a 2-hour story. His prayers were answered, that Stone Cold Steve Austin got what was coming to him, and Brian Pillman was happy about it. So yeah, another really hot ending for Raw.
Yeah, just think, guys, how far we have come from ending a Raw with Harvey Whippleman versus the Fink in a tuxedo match. Really, I mean, where we've come to where we are here. It's amazing to think about. One of the reasons I love doing this with you guys, and it's so great to finally be here. Well, as I said, we faded to black, so let's take it on over to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you take that first?
Once again, another great episode of Raw that I would encourage all listeners to watch, because it's just everything about this show was great. But my highlight, I'm going to go with just the work of Brian Pillman and the Hart Foundation in general. I just thought this was a great highlight for them. For a low light, I'm going to go with Jim Ross and Vader talking about wrestling being fake on TV. I really didn't like that.
Yeah.
My highlight, fairly similar. It's just Brian Pillman and his praying. I thought it was beautiful all night, and this preacher gimmick was hilarious. Low light, it was tough to come up with one, and I'm just going to have to be a nitpicking dickbag and pick one. I'm going with Rockabilly, just the existence of Rockabilly.
Not the match, the existence.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're going to kind of line up for highlights. I went specifically with Bret Hart's promo. This was not just a testament to what can happen when you freshen up the material, but also Bret Hart's ability to deliver. It's not like we needed a reminder necessarily, but the man can fucking talk. And Jesus, he talked in that promo. Lowlight, I went with Flash Funk versus Rockabilly, the whole match, not just Rockabilly's existence. The action wasn't terrible, but the cartoon gimmicks, they just stood out like a sore thumb, like I said. It was surrounded by all of this modern storytelling that continues to entertain and amaze us, and then there's just this big old turd hanging out right in the middle of it there. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around April 28th, 1997 for us?
Yes, I do. Dave Meltzer is reporting that Bret Hart did undergo arthroscopic knee surgery on April 23rd. He will likely be back in action by the King of the Ring event, which is in June. So he might be out for a while. Dave Meltzer has some comments on tonight's show. He said the show was very good since almost everything in the Bret Hart versus Austin angle is great. There is a lack of depth in the promotion, though, and it's still very apparent as most of the rest of the show was dead.
Yeah.
His comment on Rockabilly versus Flash Funk was just simply not good.
You are correct, sir.
Yeah. He said the Owen Hart versus Rocky Maivia match was a dead match and gave it a 1.25 stars. Didn't like that one. He says that the Ken Shamrock video is the best thing they've done with him to date. So he liked that. He also commented on Goldust, saying that Goldust worked his ass off in tonight's match, but this feud just does not get over with Goldust as a face.
Yeah, pretty much our sentiment.
Reported on Henry Godwin already. He did suffer that neck injury. He'll be out for a while. You guys know my boy Hugo, the Spanish announcer. Yeah. Well, Hugo got himself into some trouble.
Uh-oh.
He was fired after being arrested at his apartment in Stamford on charges of possession of narcotics, child neglect, and possession of drug paraphernalia on April 24th. Stamford police arrested Hugo and 2 of his companions when they investigated his apartment and found malnourished 5- and 6-year-old children.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And an apartment lined with cockroaches and crack cocaine vials. All 3 adults were held on $20,000 bond.
Yeah, I'm left kind of speechless over that. How have we never heard about this?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll pretend it never happened. I don't know.
I mean, they fired him.
That's no big deal.
Were they his kids? Like his biological kids, I mean?
Yeah, I don't have any other details. We'll have to see if Dave reports more in the coming weeks.
There's some blaring holes in this story.
Yeah. And, if you choose to apply the worst possible interpretation, that's pretty goddamn bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Fuck.
We'll pretend it never happened, maybe. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Man.
So that's what ended up cursing the Spanish announce table.
Yes.
I've always wondered why the Spanish announce table ended up being the real jobber of the WWF for years and years afterwards. We just started seeing it here, but that must be why. Fuck.
That's why Mankind's head went through it so easy, the neglect.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Jesus.
No surprise, Sid was not at Raw again this week. He had an MRI done on his back on April 28th, so who the hell knows where he is.
Yeah.
And that is all.
All right. Well, thank you, Joseph. Illuminating and tragic as always. And that's it, folks. We're done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most action-packed Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on May 5th, 1997, with matches featuring Vader, Rockabilly, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.